Dry sardine shop. It's been years since our last Dine and Dash. How do I handle this? Oh, wait. Is it the same Dine and Dasher? Oh no, did he come to Okinawa? What happened? Wow, a Dine and Dasher. We haven't had one in almost 20 years. Hey, there he is now. Over there. Oh my gosh. He left. I mean, he was true to his word. He said he'd leave Kamurocho. But it's him. No, it's not. It's someone else. Wait. No, it is him. He got skinny. Wait, dude. Dude. All right, game. Hold the phone. I need to process this. It is a black shirt. I didn't see the guy's face. He's wearing the same pants, same shoes, but he's super skinny now. It is, if it's the same Dine and Dasher, you win. Like, good job. I love it. It's such a minor thing, but that would be so great. I called this earlier though. I was like, what if he just hot take? What if we just keep chasing him and suddenly one day he just becomes skinny? So if that pays off. It's almost like RGG writers were writing these sub stories for me. Obviously not, but a great serendipitous coincidence, I suppose. That's a little redundant, what I just said. What do? I can't leave the shop. I can't just let him go either. Could you catch the Dine and Dasher? I'm sure I can find something to pay you with. Alright. I have to know. I just need to catch him, right? Sorry to drag you into this. I'll make sure it's worth your time. I have to know. Is it the same guy? I have to know. Oh, it doesn't look like it from his portrait there. I guess not. It's just part of the Dine and Dasher group that guy mentioned, probably. Yeah, it's just another group. Okay. Dang it. Yeah, it just happens to be some very nondescript. Are you? Hey, oh, it is him. Oh my gosh, it is him. Oh, RGG, you win. Plus 13 points. It is him. Wow, he really cleaned up. He lost like 200 pounds. Like just straight up 200 pounds. Hey, it's me, you know, the old Kamurocho Dine and Dasher. Wait, you're that Dine and Dasher? But... Oh, I tried, but I just couldn't give up. I dashed my way across Japan and, well, look how much weight I lost. Oh, dude. I mean, it's a very unconventional way of losing weight. But, hey, you do you, man. You do you. I run a popular blog, too. Oh my gosh, the deep cut. Maybe you've heard of the Dine and Dash diet going around? Okay. There's a... the coincidence. So much coincidence. So I've been, you know, managing the YouTube channel now and been thinking about ideas and whatnot, but the channel is on a different account because I gotta make sure my personal account is not the same. By sheer coincidence, because the account doesn't have any YouTube history, right? It's constantly used blanked, and I wanted to use it for something else later. One of the front page, homepage that you'd be interested stuff is a video that was titled, "I drove 175 miles per hour from location A to B without getting pulled over." And the moment I thought about that, this is what makes me think about that. Because when you look around and I see all these things, it only takes split second to keep track of all the videos and whatnot because I like to actively censor it. So this pretty much nails it on the head about content creation in general, or like ways of creating sensation while motivated to doing it just because. And this guy has a popular blog, and it's about dine and dashing, but he turned it into something regarding his active lifestyle that has changed. But encouraging dine and dashing is kind of a crime. And well, it is a crime. And that reminds me of that video. Just for a split millisecond when I was clicking away, because I needed to get to the homepage, then go to YouTube Studios, I saw a similar thing where this person is sensationalizing speeding on the road, but getting clout for it. So, and this type of thing is very sensational. Like, we had a discussion, a slight digression 2 days ago about scams, right? Or scamming the scammer. It's still technically a vengeful vigilantism that is borderline criminal. Like, yes, there's social justice, but social justice is often used as a justification for something actually illicitly and potentially illegal, like behavior that is detrimental. It's eye for an eye, blood for blood. So you can clout that. You can create sensationalism for that. But it's people who are opportunistic and passionate about something with not necessarily any ill intent. However, it's also naive to believe that it does not have unintentional consequences and liability. So this might be one of them. But it's a game about organized crime, I suppose. And it's kind of great to see that this guy found a new calling. But I like to hope, in my realistic, unnecessary way, that this blog is about the act of running that was inspired off dine and dashing, and not giving the impression that dine and dashing is a motivation for weight loss. As in, you should dine and dash because it's fun and it's, giggly and stuff while going on a diet. And this game is only PlayStation 3, right? But it is still within the time that it was made, in the era of rising content creation influence. But influencers, the rise of influence, only truly become a critical mass in the last maybe 5 years, which it's a little after Yakuza 3 based on its and the stuff that's being written was well before that, because Yakuza 3 had years of development. So RGG Studios kind of had a foresight, maybe coincidental or intentional foresight, of seeing what actually would have happened very soon, which is the idea that when you are popular, it alleviates, or it somehow liberates you from the negligence, the unintentional negligence that you can have because you're passionate and genuine. Regrettably, being passionate and genuine leads to naivety, and that often comes with unforeseen consequences. That also comes with being young and inexperienced, or blindly passionate. So, lots of deep cuts, but I love it. This is great. Allows me to digress a little. Something wrong? Never mind. Just come back to the shop with me. I think Kiryu had something to say about that. Being an older person, I would say he probably said something. Like, it doesn't justify his passion. Pork rib noodles, bitter melon stir fry. It comes to 2,300 yen. If you can't pay, you can wash dishes for me. No, he can pay. I'm so sorry. I just can't help myself. Here's a really, really quick hot take. People who go to shopping, one viral trend right now, or kind of trend, people who go to shops, like go to department stores, steal something and document it, and then go back and say, sorry, we did this, here, I'll pay you now. But the idea is it's sensationalizing using department stores as a place to commit a crime, but it's no longer a crime if you admit to the crime and use clout to demonstrate it. It happens a lot, and those videos aren't flagged for only for adults or for only for entertainment or making disclaimers. There's no form of disclaiming that discloses the dangers of these activities or not to encourage individuals who are naive and innocent from doing it. There is a gigantic pushback and normalization of concerned adults and other viewers who are growing older now to naysay or suggest, like, hey, you should probably want to put a disclaimer, like, this is for entertainment, maybe even staged. There's a reason why entertainment in the long run, well before content creators and influencers, that things are scripted, they are staged, so that the mutual parties are demonstrating or portraying a event that could happen with possible consequences or not. Nowadays, it's unscripted. The whole idea is to be candid, but those are crimes. They are crimes. They might be petty crimes or maybe no harm, no foul kind of thing, but you're disrupting other people's livelihoods for your clout. And it's so innocent, right? So innocent for these influencers to use their passion to justify their actions that is the new form of innocence. Like back in the day, you would be a little kid. I guess I'm going to change this into a digression, right? Might as well take this opportunity. Back in the day, kids explore negligence and life experiences on an even smaller scale. I don't know, this is going to be a tough example, but I use this example because it's true to my own life. The bully, he's going to punch a kid out and steal his money, right? He doesn't this kid doesn't understand how they're coping or all the things that motivate themselves. But what it happens is, well, it didn't kill the kid or it didn't make the kid stop going to school and bringing money, so I'll just continue doing it. And then when they do it, it makes them feel better. It gives them clout, like personal clout, but it's on a micro scale. It's one person affecting one person's life. The new age version of that is a kid saying, oh, you know what? I'll film myself doing it so then I can encourage millions of people. So then, like thousands of people. Then thousands of people give them clout. So it's a new form of enabling. And that's kind of what's materializing here. And I don't necessarily say the level of crime is different because of the responsibilities, the assumed responsibility and liability of the person. As someone who's a lot older now and didn't grow up in the age of I grew up in the age of the internet, but it was way past when I was a kid exploring petty crime. Because I myself, in reflection, have technically committed technical crimes. Like, it's not like certain things like lying, white lying, like these tasks are at the micro level. So you make the argument like, oh, I learned from them and no one was hurt, right? And things can go on. But now we're getting to a point where, yes, people can get hurt and you can hurt people without knowing it. There used to be a target and a consequence. That's where kids and younger people explore life and consequences at a micro level. Now these kids have the ability to do it on the macro level and not be aware of it, not be informed. They are innocent once, and you keep them innocent. So that's one of the compelling arguments to help kids, or maybe even safeguard them through moderation and whatnot. The idea is there's a slow process of being able to grow and observe things to understand the bigger picture. It is unreasonable to expect someone who's innocent and lived only so long to experience life to have a holistic approach of all the consequences that could potentially happen. So, bearing that in mind, now we have like mid people who still kind of are naive to most things. Um, I would argue even those people who scoff at rules. So, any influencer, in my opinion, that is still innocent, very passionate, charming, even, because I kind of find this sub story quite charming. However, it doesn't change the idea that what they're doing is out of ignorance, it's out of innocence. They have not experienced or witnessed, or maybe choose not to witness, what they do will destroy, potentially affect, have both desirable and undesirable effects. But their passion makes them focus on themselves most of the time. There is the occasional person who's passionate at a young age for the welfare of others, but typically in when you're growing up, the younger age, you don't understand so much about yourself that it is very rational to focus on the self. At some point though, when that discovery becomes less and less interesting, when you reach adulthood, whenever the age is, biological age is very unpredictable with mental intellectual age, but you will reach a point where you become less interesting, and then your passion deviates and concern others. So that's kind of why, is it fair to assume that young people are more about themselves and older people are more about themselves? It is fair. It's not always true, yes, but statistically, how the human condition works is in that direction. So, why is it fair that adults make rules for the sake of the community, like the collective, and younger people are focused on like passion projects and like exceptional, like working with skill-based tasks that highlight their strengths and whatnot, and they become sheltered from other things that detract themselves from the current thing they're passionate about. That's kind of the idea. It all is, interconnected. Older people have are more likely to have other interests in mind, especially other people, because the more worldly they become from life experiences, they tend to have to deal with that. How do you become a successful business person? Well, first, you live long enough to curate a business that becomes successful, and through that process, you have to concern yourself with everyone. Like, your success is proportional to your ability and concern with other people. As a kid, you're not. You don't. You have the propensity and uh, potential to capitalize on something that you're discovering yourself. You don't get that ever again when you become an adult. So the more worldly you become, the more worldly you're concerned with other things outside yourself. However, it's a trade-off in focusing on the self. So this is where the intersection of my concern with influencers, and I don't think they should be stigmatized in the sense that you can't do this, you can't do that. It's just some groups are playing catch up and some groups are not, but there's no refinement yet of what used to work before the internet scaled up to what is working now on the internet. So until that scale up, there's going to be a transition period. And the transition period is, to me, in a very conservative way, there are really passionate, well-skilled, honest, intended kids or younger people out there, but they are ignorant, naive, and not concerned with the welfare of the impact of their influence. One day, when they grow older or have more life experiences or encounter those unintended consequences, it will hopefully, and I like to believe that that encounter will have a mutual benefit that doesn't ruin anyone's life, either on either side, or the cause or the effect, that allows them to grow from it mutually in both cases. That creates a system that will eventually be in place that's a scale up version of the old system where, hey, oh yeah, we need to put in some rules. Hey guys, you're young, you're passionate, I know you want to do these things, but these rules are placed here so that one day, if someone decides your advice ruined my life because you ruined my kid's inspiration, these rules are helped to mitigate that. And whether you like it or not, those rules are inconvenience, right? For the one that can't see the picture for the rules. However, it will also potentially save them to appreciate that when they grow older. And that's kind of how I feel when I see and converse with younger content creators compared to when I have to counter argue. For example, copyright infringement. Like, which one's more reliable? YouTube is. There are rules, there are standards. It helps protect both you and the creators. If you were one of the music creators, you would have a different perspective. But the idea is, since it doesn't concern you at a younger age, it's difficult to not just perceive it as an inconvenience. So the looser things are, certainly, if it's mutually sustainable, fair enough. Rules, however, are placed in to normalize a behavior that may have unintended consequences that are beyond the scope of someone's interest at the moment. And this is predicated on the acceptance that humans still look out for each other as they grow older. So, relatively speaking, from my younger self to me now, I am exponentially more likely to be concerned and compassionate with someone other than myself than my younger self. So that is, to me, one of the quintessential human conditions to keep in mind. The idea that we trust older people is the idea that you will trust your older self in the future to be the similar. But you will become more compassionate over time because human condition, it gets less interesting about yourself. There are people who continue to self-discover, like on and on and on, but it arguably becomes less and less the center driver than legacy building as you get older, as you're transitioning. There are individuals who probably go through their entire life exploring their own identity. That's fair. But that's more the exception than the rule, because being concerned with yourself and finding that everything outside yourself is less interesting after you've gone through like 30 to 40 years of self-discovery, it's almost a statistical anomaly. So the older you get, the more you're gonna intrinsically learn about yourself, unless you truly are ignorant to yourself. Like, self-awareness is tough. The next frontier after self-awareness is the awareness of others, because what more challenging than someone you can't read, someone whose mind is as complicated as yours, but you have no access, like 24, like complete access to their thoughts. So that becomes the next frontier. when self-awareness and self-identity is no longer interesting, right? Or what I mean by no longer interesting is it becomes less interesting than exploring others. And I feel that's where my stage is. So I'm constantly overly concerned, not in a bad or a good way. I actually kind of desire my balance right now. Overly concerned with the perceptions, motives, activities, and behavior patterns of others. It's to the point where when I think about myself, like when I'm thinking inwardly, the things I say, I don't even know are true to myself. Like, what I mean is, in my younger self, I would constantly find evidence. Like, I'm hyper focused on finding evidence so that I make sure that I'm not wrong or I'm not right about something incorrectly, like right or wrongs about what my knowledge is. But now I've gotten to the point where so many things are automated to the point when I'm connecting ideas and I'm talking about bigger picture things, I get the feedback from others that think, oh, all this stuff you say checks out. What are your evidence? And I start thinking, man, I really should start collecting evidence. But it's gone down to the point where I intuitively constantly observe patterns about humans' behaviors that I'm more likely to be successful at saying, well, this is what I observe. Please collect the evidence to say otherwise or support my case. But I can tell you loosely that I do not have evidence for this. But this is how I intuit these things, right? So the idea now is, since I'm so concerned and spend most of my time intuiting and taking in as much information, but I'm not synthesizing, like I'm not record keeping, it's almost at the point where I can't record keep all these things. Like I would need an AI butler or something that would. How do I circumvent this problem? My circumventing of this is to data mine people who are willing to support or go against my intuition now. So the idea is I have chosen to be part of social media or like content creation in general, and I'm using it to create a platform in which the people who are younger than me, who are more intellectually younger than me, are still focused on collecting raw stats. So the idea is I will defer to individuals who are still at a state of mind where they're focused on whether being right or being accurate without contextual boundaries, like looking for universal truths is still their driver, and hope they provide the synthesized data for me so that I don't actively and go and spend time seeking it. It, to me personally, that is no longer rewarding. To prove something right, to prove something wrong. My ultimate goal is to convey something that breathes impressions and life experience to someone who will eventually, possibly, have those same things and become less concerned with the finer details of specific outlooks and focus on the bigger picture of things. And we're talking about bigger pictures than generalizations. Generalizations tend to fall into, in my opinion, a narrower level of competence, is because when you generalize, you're looking for a cause and an effect. You're stepping back enough so that your narrative is correct. You generalize so that you provide clarity. The thing I'm contrasting with is I'm using a bigger picture approach in order to demonstrate how complex it is, not how easy it is to understand, how more complicated it becomes when you generalize. And what I mean by that is it's ironic in this situation where most people use generalizations to simplify explanations. So for example, oh, most people do this, so you should do this. That simplifies the thing. My perspective on that is most people do this, but that just makes it more complicated. So what do the smaller proportion of people do? Is it even accurate to say that? Like it only complicates things. Like that's the idea. When you generalize more, there's less specifics. That's the reality of the situation. So often people use generalizations to convey a straightforward question or answer or something because they don't have the time to invest in the details. And then somehow they expect that because they simplified it with generalizations, that people can't misunderstand them. So they went out of their goal to generalize to make it easier for someone to understand, only to make the case complicated. And that's generally the post-internet world now. It's ironic, the one thing you do more often, or a younger audience do more often, makes results in something they don't expect. They deliberately generalize to make it easier to understand, but it only complicates things. It used to work when everyone didn't have access to like a breadth of knowledge, right? A breadth of information, not necessarily wisdom or experience. Life, maturity, intuition is built on a foundation of observed habits, thinking habits. And that's where adults get to a point. When you become intellectually mature, you get to a point where you no longer address or approach problem solving like that. You approach how to be inclusive and then settling for something as opposed to thinking you can maximize something. I think that's one of the greatest fine line change where your mindset is to efficiently optimize for what you know at the moment, not what you think is best. Both of them could land on the same thing, but the mindset of your solution is, in my opinion, a setup for emotional instability. So for me, say a younger, in my opinion, a younger, less intellectually mature person was presented a pool of information, and I was presented with the identical pool of information, like what we just did with the detective story that just happened in this game earlier. Um, I will draw out all the possible concern. I would be more in line with the possible interconnection of the limited pool of information, while a younger person would take that pool of information and come up with the best conclusion, like what they think is the best conclusion. I came up with multiple conclusions, and regardless, I would think the likelihood is they belong to one of them is correct. But I am not concerned with getting the one thing that is correct. I'm concerned with understanding the pool of things that could be correct or could be useful, and also include all the include all the possibilities that is outside of me knowing. So if it doesn't belong to that pool, it is also interesting, as opposed to, oh, I got it wrong, so moving along now. So the difference between having a solution that's the best you can do at the moment versus the all I decide to choose one at the time, knowing that there are other options, plenty of other options, those mindsets are very different in the end. Because if you choose this is the best way with all this information, if the results don't, the results are less likely to match your expectations compared to someone who is much older, who's more worldly, likely compared to themselves. So if you pick a younger point and an older point for the very same person, the older version of that person is more likely to be potentially a little bit more indecisive, but also a little bit more consistent and understanding. And that's kind of the idea of why there's a shift between who makes the rules and uh moderations and like the well-being of a larger community than who is a performer in it. So, one could even say because we are linear creatures, we have a beginning and an end, that all this fits neatly into the idea of cycling, a linear time frame of non-transferable experiences. Like, our beginning and our end, we can only transfer it in a way of legacy, which is medium and content creation, which I love at the moment. It's great. It's so lovely that you can record these things, share them. It's great for legacy building. It's to the point where I might even recommend it to much older people in a different way. So if you ever see, here's a slight hot take, which again, no evidence other than anecdotal experience, is that if you want to see a person who is less likely to be opportunistic, we might say opportunistic is the word I'm going to use because I don't want to use words like disingenuous or genuine. Opportunistic, compassionate, and maybe a rebel or less impressionable or motivated by ulterior motives. Find an older person who is creating content, not a younger person. It's not to say that a younger person can't be, like, you can take the most intellectually mature younger person and compare it to the most intellectually immature older person. Yeah, you will have that. But we're talking about statistics, the probabilities of the human condition taking hold, right? So if you want to have an idea of what it's like to talk to or think or being in the mindset or observe someone who is intellectually more mature, you might, now we're in the presence where most people are tackling this. You might find an older person who may be really a big curiosity for younger people, and then vice versa. So for me, I fulfill that what I'm observing right now. So maybe I'm peddling my own narrative here. Perhaps I'm an older person who observes and concern myself with what young people do, far younger people or intellectually younger people, like people who commit certain things, like this character here, which is, we're going to take it all the way back to this sub story and maybe a little of the detective story, is the idea that I am fascinated with what I am not anymore, which is how a younger audience, a more naive, passionate audience, handle and utilize and take advantage of the post-internet age, the post-content creation age, while my staples, like the staples that I don't even need to secondhand, like actively participate because I'm always generally in agreement, is that the content creators that I resonate with are older people. And when they see something, it's cathartic. So I watch those as my daily drivers because it's immediately relatable. So the things that they talk about, the things that they say, it's like reading it out of my mind. So we're intellectually in the same stage of maturity and agreeability. However, the most fascinating things that I'm trying to learn about is everything I'm not. So now I'm overly concerned. And yeah, I don't collect data straight up. Absolutely. And I hope people would collect data from off like my claims. In fact, if someone is really upset, in my opinion, about saying something that I say is absolutely not true, I would love in a hope that because of their claim against me, that they would be inspired to do that. They would be inspired to challenge me, and that's great because that means someone is doing it. Someone is collecting the data, attacking the idea, but it was inspired. It was triggered off something I said. That is utilizing youthful ambition. And that's kind of the idea of, in my opinion, the motivators of older people. And you see a transition of the content as well. Like nowadays, it's been long enough where you have seen the phases of a content creator going from in younger phase to an older intellectual phase where their content switched from like the concern for self and like how they achieve it or what is interesting, which can be mirrored. It's a big digression, but we'll talk about this another time, where right now YouTube is transitioning from a search-based impression model to a I don't know what we would call that, a feature-based model. Basically, back in the day, that huge wad of people, you go on YouTube, you're looking for something. So you only look for that stuff. So, for example, you're a young person, you're really naive, you're lacking information. The biggest things that draw impressions on YouTube is how-to stuff. Like, how do I do this? How do I do that? You are more self-interested in benefiting yourself based on what only you are interested in. But there's a big shift, and I'm not a popular influencer or not, but I could probably say if I interviewed content creators who are now still trending, they're not slumping, they're still trending, the way they market their titles, their descriptions, their content is now telling people what they want and need in the title, sparking their curiosity and their concern as a viewer. So now the viewer has officially become the customer. How does that parallel with what I just said all the way back to the Dine and Dash thing? The group, the YouTube group, the boon before, the accessibility, everyone's getting older. They're getting older by a decade now. Their interest has shifted from being concerned with their self to what's out there that they can use. So nowadays, content creators went from here's how you do something to you can do this in 5 minutes and you'll get great benefits. So now the content creators focus on enticing the viewers on what they want or trying to anticipate what the viewers want. That shifts the content creators mindset to it's not about what I want, it's about what my potential viewers and my community wants to see. Yeah. So that used to be, to me, that is going out. So that stuff is heading out the door. It's much less so now because of the majority of the people are now concerned with, instead of saying, instead of getting people to hit, right, on search results, what they're doing now is how like even the YouTube algorithm works, right? The YouTube algorithm caters to the viewer's interest. So the vast majority of stuff comes from search features, or not features, not search features, but like yeah, I guess they're still called search features, not like direct searches, like the person typing in an entry. It's about the relevance of the stuff. No, tags are way out the door. Tags are like non-existent now. There are no longer tags. It's about keywords and systematic references. So, for example, you hit a title, like you're scrolling, and in front of your page there's a video that says, man, if you do these 5 things, you're gonna change your life in the next 30 minutes. Or as opposed to, here's how in 5 easy steps to change. Well, you're not. Yes, they both say the same thing, but one tells you what you need. The other one asks you if you're interested, like if you want to do it. Like it's a step thing. Like, but the other one is telling you this is going to happen. So the idea is, the content creator is trying to guess, hey, how do I get a viewer's insecurities, fears, maybe curiosity, paranoia, I don't know, like all the emotions. So you're more focused in your content creation to focus on how do your viewers feel, and I have to make content that will attract and fulfill that want, not waiting for your customer, your viewer, to have a question. So what you would do in that situation is you create volumes of things so that eventually someone will need those things, like will be interested in those things. No, now you're going to make videos directly cater towards them. So no, you don't choose. You want this. I'm going to convince you you want this because I need to understand you. The other way is like, yeah, I can just make a bunch of how-to videos that interest me, right? So I want to, for example, if I were to make content that represents what I have or what I want to do, is I would make a bunch of video series that says, here are the things to enhance open-mindedness. Maybe one day someone will be interested in open-mindedness. So I'm really interested. So I'm just going to make a bunch of videos about the statistics, the psychology behind it. And one day someone will be interested. And I'm still doing that now. Like right now, I still do this. I play video games expecting that someone will be interested in the video games. So all my titles on my YouTube channel and whatnot, they're just about, hey, I want someone to be interested just because they tangentially or coincidentally are interested and they are inspired off of something. But if I were to obey the current trend that is happening, that's migrating towards, is, for example, for this particular digression, instead of saying, I digressed about psychological trends between intellectual immaturity and intellectual maturity in context of, I don't know, content creation at the time. That would be like, oh yeah, one day someone will be interested in a documentary. Or I could say, this is what's happening, or like, here is my hot take. Like these are the factors that are making younger content creators dangerous to themselves, and here's why uh here's why older content creators need to moderate more aggressively. That's something I'm telling you you want to know. Like, the way I'm presenting it is, I think my audience want to know this, but I'm not doing that at the moment. But I had thought about it because I'm looking at trends. Whenever I do something, I haven't started a YouTube channel until like a week ago, so now I'm hyper aggressively concerned with the models and the things that are happening on YouTube. So these are the things that I'm observing. And I don't know if I want to embrace those things or not, but it is very informative to someone like me to be aware of those things. Then it gives me the flexibility and the opportunity to choose to participate or not. Being aware doesn't mean you have to do it. What's the next step past? What's the next pass? Ask if the customer viewers interested. Um, ultimately, if you take like the pre-internet era, it would just be a mix of both. So you would end up getting the option, yeah. So ultimately, it would be a refinement, and what happens is a conciliate. I mean, unless the internet violates rules. I mean, the internet has done many things that didn't recur. But for this case, if it's the human condition holds true, maybe the internet violates all of human condition. If it holds true, it would cycle. And what happens is the current trend would reconcile with the previous trend and both would coexist. So what happens is you as a YouTube platform, they probably offer the option of either or. Like for example, right now one conciliation is that you can literally go into your settings and tell your YouTube to never hold the history of your viewer, like your YouTube channel, like your YouTube account. You can turn it off, eradicate all your history, and you can constantly experience YouTube like that. But the thing is, some people say, "Oh, it doesn't work" or something. Well, what is presented then are all the trending topics. That is universal on YouTube. So if it just happens to be Fortnite, then you'll likely see Fortnite videos on your front page. But the idea is you can have the option to do that now. You can have so I would say yeah, it will probably end up being asked like, do you want to be catered to? Are you a how-to person? Uh if I had to throw in a hot take, machine learning is going to be integrated into that to determine what kind of person you are. And that's a scary thought, but there will probably be an option to turn that off too or on. For me, I would turn it on out of curiosity what machine learning tells me about myself because I don't have full access to someone like me to analyze someone like me every day. I mean, that's what the challenge is here. I think my YouTube channel, I want to envision it to be something where people scrutinize me. That's what I'm actually relying on. It's the opposite of what I feel most content creators do. Now, here's the catch. And what I mean by the catch is it's a fine line. So the successful content creators are looking for feedback. So they are looking for ideas in which will inspire them to fall along their thought process. For me, I want to be all the content to be as messy or as real as they can be. And the idea is that I want to be analyzed or criticized and like, however, the way I'm doing to them. So what I mean is everything I see on YouTube, I'm analyzing it in kind of the silence, but when appropriate. But it would be kind of cool to extract all the potential, basically employing the workforce. And there are, in the vast minority, there are a minority of successful stories that use this, where instead of hiring incredible amount of data scientists and people they still hire for like the editing and all that stuff, but instead of coming up with the ideas and stuff, you can reverse the role and use basically the biggest workforce, in my opinion, the most untapped workforce in the world. Voluntary viewership. So for me, the ones that I know, in my opinion, or I wouldn't say I know, I say with a really high chance, the really successful particular people, their approach is probably simply utilizing the incredible, poorly tapped resources that is the over concerned criticism and critical views of people who are invested. So you can harness that. And I have a bunch of ideas, but I would need it to be picked up first before I do it. which that leads to the future of what you're asking. What's like the next step of consumer and viewer interest? Both. The answer is both. And I want to spin that. However, it requires influence and it will take time. And who knows? By the time that happens, in my opinion, that's likely to happen, it may be too late. And it would just be a missed opportunity. But it will be a life, a learning lesson. Anyways, that's a great digression. Add it to it. I don't know how I'm gonna wrap it up in a bow, like back. But it all comes back to all this stuff that I'm thinking about involves the current state of influencers. So like the vast majority of influencers, are they transitioning to a different, like are the old guard transitioning into maturity in a way that is reflective of me? Or am I leaving that too and I'm getting even older? And what's the new generation happening? Like what is the old guard spawning? What are those new ones? And to me, on a personal level, a lot of it's really alarming because the older people who are in it, who have lived it, are still untapped for being placed in a leadership position to help regulate and safeguard against their experiences when they're young in order to guide or limit or maybe compromise with the younger audience. So now lots of growing trends have become far more alarming. And to wrap it all the way back to how this started, as Mazuku, you kind of just probably in the middle of it. This character here is a dine and dasher. And he was a chunky fella, like a hefty chunky fella. But dine and dashing gives him thrill. He still has the money to pay it. And Kiryu just happens to get roped up in chasing him down and making him pay it. But he has the money to pay it. It's the thrill of the dine and dash that keeps him going. And then in Kamurocho, we were in Tokyo in Kamurocho, and then there's a bunch of dine and dashing. And then near the end, he says, okay, I'm done with Kamurocho. I'm never going to dine and dash in Kamurocho anymore. But sure enough, RGG Studios paid out, and I made a little snide comment like earlier, say, what if he just ran a lot? Like he's improving his stamina, like the mini game made his stamina go up. It's like, what if he just got skinny after all this? So sure enough, I encountered this guy here that complained about a dine and dasher, and we meet the same character, and he is skinny, and he made a really, really deep cut and said, oh, I also have a popular blog now. It's called Dine and Dashing and Diet, or Dine and Dash Diet. And that's where it spiraled to all of this stuff, which eventually lead to that. So to take it all back, some of the concerning trends represent what this kid does. It's great, it's earnest, it's wholesome, contextually in a video game, but it has, as an adult that's concerned with kids' health, maybe even unforeseen circumstances, and then what's going on YouTube regulation, Facebook regulation, moderation, ads, all that stuff from an older person's perspective, I guess, like older intellectually. I'm not really biologically that old, but 36 years of age. My concern is that younger, as in younger intellectually, less mature people are creating incredibly sensational trends. And those sensational trends, the consequences, the alarming potential consequences are being outweighed by the opportunism of their younger personalities. So these people find opportunity and clout reinforced by a system the companies have made. So those companies, the legalities and stuff are in are being argued right now. Are they responsible? Can they be held responsible for what may happen down the road? And the early examples of this happening is still lighter than what may happen soon. So, for example, what's an early consequence of this? And obviously, the companies are exonerated from this because their terms of services prevent that. But it's getting to a critical mass, to a concerning point. Like, for example, Tide Pods, the whole Tide Pod thing, or the dry scooping protein powder, like things that could ultimately indirectly result in negligence, innocence negligence, things are spiraling. And what happens is there's no, in my opinion, there isn't a balance of consumer and viewer platforms to negotiate the rules of what it takes to prevent misinterpretation and understanding that certain things have dangers and not dangers. Back in the day when things were really regulated, they weren't always regulated. Like TV, like what goes on TV, it started like the Wild Wild West, but then TV become regulated to a point where, yeah, there will be a disclaimer in front of Johnny Knoxville's production, right? Because those are pranks. They're very dangerous. Or there's a, this is performed by professionals on a Red Bull commercial or something like that. That's stuff like that is in the, is the agency is in the content creator. But the content creator has not aged to a, or age or experience. In fact, many of the, even the older content creators lived in a bubble. Like they created content in a bubble, and only unfortunately when an altercation and a conflict of interest occurs do they get the experience of figuring out what the other unintentional consequences are. And to me, sometimes that cause so much damage that their entire life starts a different chapter. It could go downhill for that person. So the idea is rules and moderations not only provide an inconvenience to all the people who can't understand that yet, the younger people. Like I'm saying it like it's a good thing, but it's an inconvenience, but I'm saying it like a muted thing. It creates an inconvenience for content creation, but it also stops and mitigates those people who will be crushed down the line for things that they couldn't have possibly ever anticipate. That's kind of like what's a great example of that for the older generation that went on the internet out of ignorance. Like it happened already. Twitter posts and Discord messages or leaks of email transactions that obliterated people's careers. Well, with safeguards and understanding of needing things to promote a prevention of negligence or accountability or a redistribution of accountability is what wasn't there yet because it was unprecedented. So every content creator and influencer, if they are, whoever's like turning 20s or 30s, when I'm like a 40 or 50-year-old person, I would not be surprised at all that the major headlines on when I'm reading and concerning myself still with like 40 and 30-year-olds of, now that they're 20 and 30s, they will be the scandals. The conflict of interest, this guy makes billions of dollars, but you know what? We dug up some dirt. So content creation is not creating a platform at the moment. Like the companies are not creating a platform that safeguards technically their revenue source. They are, though, companies. So they're in the safeguard for their own company's integrity right now, which is how businesses are operated. but it's the first time where the massive revenue source there is indirect employment. And should they be responsible or have some responsibility to promote their community? Well, some people might say yes, because it helps them make more money. It's like, that's great. That's a great motivation to compromise the logistics. So what YouTube is doing is YouTube is taking more inconveniences, biting the bullet to create things that may be an inconvenience, but in the end, create an entire community that's self-perpetuating for healthy guidance and prevention. Hey guys. Hey Carfers. Hello, hello. So to wrap this up, this digression up, at the moment, my biggest concern is that even without history or not history, the most sensational things are filled with the natural migration to a content creation that tells you what you want, but the content creators themselves are opportunistically motivated by their own self-interest because they are largely a younger audience than the current maturing audience that no longer does that anymore. So to give you a contrast, all the older content creators, the old guard, has continued to do what they do because of the founders effect. So like, older content creators are continuing to provide informative how-to things, but those who are younger, who are more ambitious and are seeking to follow the trend, they're making videos based on what you want to know, what you should know. But the difference is it's disproportionately and biasly self-selecting for younger people, more ambitious, younger, intellectually people, as opposed to older people. Those older people have the founders effect. They believe in consistency, so they continue to do it. So now, like, the people that I watch daily as a daily driver, they don't change with the trends, but they're consistent enough in terms of foundation and founders effect to support commercially. Occasionally they dabble in more, like, taking on new ideas, but in a slower pace. The newer, riskier things that come up on YouTube is like, I outrun the cops for 24 hours. Watch me outrun them. That gets you millions of views. Are you guys okay? Huh. But more on that in the future, because I'm kind of wrapping my head around what I want to say about that. Just, the internet is aging with with the original founders group. All right. Anyways, we're gonna get back to this sub story. Like an hour later, and Yakuza is going well. Mazuku, sorry, I didn't answer that question because I was in the middle of it. Hey guys, what's up? How's everyone? Hope everyone's feeling all right. Seems like some of you might be. Seems like coincidentally, a bunch of you are having side effects of life. Hope everyone's doing all right. Okay, so let's get back to this. I'll let you go this time, but remember that dining and dashing is a crime. That's the hot take. That's one of the hot takes that lead back to what I was ranting about. Don't ever do this again. He's gonna do this again. He's already done it 6 times. 5 times. I think this is the 5th time. He did it 4 times in Kamurocho. At least what Kiryu is aware of. Thank you for bringing him to justice. I just don't know what kids these days are thinking. That. Let's see if we see him again. Well, we'll see. I don't think this is the last time. I knew it'd be you. You're the only man who can catch me. Look, just give it up. Oh yeah? My new diet made me famous. And I even got a girlfriend. That manager from the gelato place, remember? I've got a thing for strong women. I sort of fell for her when she was scolding me, and now we're on vacation together. Clout. And some reasonable reinforcement. So, what I'm trying to say is, I'm done for real. Today marks my final dash, because no matter what thrills I get from it, it can't be compared to a special lady in my life. Alright, that's fair. That's a really great conclusion. If this is the last final dash, it showed... I mean, we have to suspend the disbelief that it's the about face, but he must have had nostalgia for his older ways, right? And he had a lot of reinforcement and success, but his life experiences is moving along now. So it's great that they're picking the an obvious one, which is a lifestyle change, which tends to be a significant other. That's great. So he lost a lot of weight, got famous off dine and dashing. And that success, no harm, no foul, right? This is the rare occasion where there was some harm, but it wasn't permanent. And then now he's learned and valued what is more valuable, and that's fine. I wouldn't say this is how a lot of things turn out, especially stuff that comes from popular influence. I don't get it, but at least he's done. Indeed, Kiryu. Indeed. Indeed. That was our 80th sub story? Oh, we reached 80. You know what that means? 29 more to go.